Okay, hi everyone. Today we're going to start our next few days on not so much leaving the Greeks, but talking about the next phase of their history, and really the final phase of it. So today we're going to examine Alexander the Great. He's from Macedonia, and eventually he and his father will combine to conquer Greece and much, much more. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to evaluate the role that Philip II, Alexander's father, played on the development of Macedonia and the Greek Empire. So let's start. After Athens and Sparta go through the Peloponnesian War, where they fight for 27 years, it's Athens, can't really compete on a battlefield with the Spartans, and at the end of all of that, the Spartans sort of go home, back to Sparta, back to the southern Peloponnesus, and they just, live their lives, and Athens tries again to rebound. They never really rebound to the strength that they originally were during the Persian Wars, and so what happens is, Greece stops working together again. It's sort of like they were the allies of Sparta, they were the allies of Athens, they didn't work together, and after the Peloponnesian War, Greece was fractured, and we know this is what happens because they don't like to work together. So there's a new powerful kingdom just to the north of Greece, and it's called Macedonia. And in 359 BCE, Philip II is the gentleman, I say gentleman, he was a brutal murderer, really. He becomes the king of Macedonia, this kingdom just exactly north of Greece, bordering on Greece. And his ultimate goal was to invade and conquer Greece. He is someone, as the Macedonians were, that were sort of jealous at times of what the Greeks had accomplished, because they had accomplished so much, and we know what the golden age of Greece was. He was also someone who was at times, he and his son Alexander really liked to study what the Greeks had accomplished. Alexander, as you'll see, was his father, Philip II, hired a Greek tutor, a very famous one that we'll talk about tomorrow, to teach him. So it's like the Macedonians are proud of their own kingdom, but they learned and adopted a great deal from the Greeks. And so Philip has this ultimate goal to invade and conquer Greece, and so Athens realizes that this is a threat. They try to rally the rest of the Greeks, as Athens usually does, against this threat of Macedonia and Philip II. Most did not even respond. Remember, the Greeks don't like to work together. So most of the Greeks, the Greek city-states, don't join Athens. Athens stands alone with their greatest ally, Thebes. We'll check out the map so you know where I'm talking about. Macedonia. So this is Greece here, okay? Crete, of course, the Aegean Sea. We know all this. This is where Troy was, the Persians over here. So this is Greece itself, Sparta down here, Athens here, and Athens has their main closest allies, Thebes, the city-state right here, okay? And so Macedonia to the north is this kingdom that's going to come down and attack. Athens and Thebes represent all of Greece because the Greeks pretty much say, deal with it yourself. And they meet Philip II and these Macedonians on the battlefield. It doesn't go well. Philip defeats the Athenians pretty easily, and it's actually such a defeat that the rest of the Greeks sort of realize it's not worth standing up against this army. So Athens and their ally Thebes join to fight the Macedonian invasion, but Philip crushes them because he has this newly organized army. Okay, his real strength is that he is a brilliant military leader. His strength, Philip II's strength, was his military. Also his reputation as being a brilliant military leader. Also the fact that he reorganizes the Macedonian army, and he does so by stealing a lot of these military ideas from the Greeks, from the Greek history. You can imagine he's going to steal some ideas from the Spartans, because who else would you look to if you are looking for military and army excellence? But he also steals a lot of ideas from the Athenians and the rest of the Greeks. So when Philip and the Macedonians crush the Athenians and the Thebans, most of the rest of Greece surrenders to Philip and make them makes him their leader. Okay. So the reorganization of this military for the Macedonians is this thing called a phalanx. We've discussed at the Battle of Thermopylae, the Spartans used a phalanx where it's soldiers shoulder to shoulder with their spear, their sword, and their shields. They cover each other. This phalanx is the Macedonian phalanx. It's a little different. It's larger. Okay, it's a much larger unit of soldiers, and their spears are significantly longer, and that's on purpose. And this is what it would have looked like. The soldiers in the rear, in the back, if the enemy's over here, the soldiers in the rear have their very elongated spears up, because they'd be poking each other in the back this way. And the soldiers in the front have their spears forward. And really what it does is it keeps the enemy further away, more at bay, if you will. And what that means is you have a better chance of stabbing and attacking your enemy and keeping them further away. You can reach them, they can't reach you. It's a big opportunity there to be successful. This is what it would look like on the front lines. You'd have the other spears raised up. This is the front line of the Macedonian phalanx. Let's examine again what the phalanx means, okay? Because it really is the biggest strength of why Philip II was so successful in crushing the Greeks so early. So a phalanx is a group of warriors or soldiers who stood close together, usually I said shoulder to shoulder, in a square while fighting, and you can see that when you examine what it looked, the illustration of what it looked like. Okay, it's a square, they're shoulder to shoulder. Each soldier holds a spear pointed outward and a shield, and so the Spartans would have the soldiers in the front with their spears down. If arrows came in, the soldiers in these other rows here would put their shield over the person in front of them, and ultimately that means everyone was covered. It was kind of like an ancient tank. Okay, a non-mechanized tank. As the soldiers in the front lines are killed, soldiers from the back step in to replace them. One guy goes down, someone steps right in from the row behind them to replace that person. Everyone moves up a row, and it means that you never have a hole in the line, which is a weakness in the line. Okay, and it fights as a perfect military unit. So, a soldier here on the side goes down, the soldier in the second row steps in and replaces them. All of the soldiers take a step forward into the row there. Arrows come in, they all cover each other with their shields. Arrows stop happening from the archers, they take the shields down, they start thrusting again. The great thing about this is the front row at the moment because the enemy's here, but if the enemy started charging this side over here, then this side row becomes the front row, and they all face this direction, and the spears just drop this way. It can really go 360 degrees. They can travel around the battlefield very quickly. Okay? So Philip II is a brilliant military leader. This is his reputation. This is a reputation built by fact, and by what he's done. He would not just send this phalanx military unit into battle, he would support them with cavalry, which are men mounted on horses, as we've examined and studied already. He would send in archers, which are men with arrows, to support this phalanx. And the biggest thing he did was add that extra long, almost ridiculously long-looking spear, and that's where the soldiers in the phalanx were given a 15 to 20-foot spear. It helps keep your enemy further away, as we talked about already, but also what it does is horses, if the cavalry are charging you from the enemy, you can get those men off those horses and stab them before they crush through your lines, before they crash through your front lines. The horses need to run into these spears. And yes, unfortunately, those horses are going to be casualties of battle. Okay? So these really long 15 to 20 foot spears makes attacking your enemies much more effective and efficient because you're keeping them further away. It's sort of like someone who's 8 feet tall fighting someone who's 5 feet tall. The guy who's 5 feet tall has much shorter arms. He's not going to be able to reach and get his a punch or a fist into his enemy, and the enemy is 8 feet tall. He's just going to reach out and knock that person down before they even have the shorter person even has a chance to get closer to them. That's what the strength of this phalanx is. Also, it's that they are a strict military fighting unit where they can turn this way. The back row can become the front row very easily, okay, at a moment's notice when the order is given. And so Philip conquers almost all of Greece. You can imagine that he leaves the Spartans alone, as Alexander will do later on when he takes over. What happens here is from 359 BCE, when when Philip II takes over, he spends about 20 years conquering the Greeks and, organizing them, making his kingdom of Macedonia, that's just north of Greece. He makes them a really strong military kingdom, and then he sets his sights. He conquers all of this, except for really down here where Sparta is, because it's almost not worth fighting them, and at the moment Crete's left alone as well. And he sets his sights over here to Asia Minor, where the Persian Empire is. Unfortunately, as Philip II prepared to turn his attention to invading the Persian Empire, he was killed at his daughter's wedding. It was an assassination. It was enemies that killed him because he was a powerful Macedonian king in general. So in 336 BCE, he is killed at his daughter's wedding. His kingdom and his grand plans to conquer the most powerful empire in the world, which is Persia, they are passed down. His throne is passed down to his 20-year-old son, Alexander. And that's where our conversation ends for today. Day one of Alexander the Great is really just mentioning that his father reorganizes this military unit, reorganizes the Phalanx, sends in cavalry, sends in archers, and has this military fighting force that was able to sweep through Greece and easily conquer almost all the Greek city-states, and most of them saw how impressive it was and laid down their arms and surrendered right away. As this happens, he's killed, he's assassinated at his daughter's wedding in 336 BCE, and the 20-year-old, he's a man, but the Greeks look at him like a boy, and they say, okay, your father, Philip II, he was the military conqueror. He was the one to fear. What is this boy going to do? And that's where our conversation will pick up tomorrow. You're going to go back into Google Classroom, and there's going to be an assignment for you there.